The Zilani homeworld of Velthora was dying. Purple clouds of death drifted across the silver cities like a slow plague. Elder Thizian pressed his pale hand against the crystal window of the last government building still standing. His people were falling in the streets below. Their silver blood turned black as the Korthok bioweapons ate through their bodies. "How many dead?" he asked, without turning around. 3 billion, whispered Advisor Melian. Her voice shook like broken glass. "The spores reached the eastern continent this morning. We have maybe 2 days before total extinction." Thizian closed his large eyes. The Zilani had lived in peace for 10,000 years. They had no weapons, no armies, no way to fight back. Their beautiful crystal cities were built for harmony, not war. The Korthok had known this when they attacked. "The other coalition worlds?" he asked. "Thyros fell yesterday. Vulcan is under siege. The Moran system went silent 6 hours ago." Melian's transparent skin flickered with fear patterns. "We are the last." The Korthok were efficient killers. They had conquered 40 systems in 5 years, using the same method every time. First came the plague ships, spreading death from orbit. Then the fear broadcasts, showing images of torture and pain until whole populations surrendered without fighting. Finally came the harvest ships to collect resources and slaves from the broken worlds. But the Zilani would not live to see the harvest ships. "Sir," called Communications Officer Tillin from his station. "The deep space transmitter is still working. We could send a distress call." Thizian laughed bitterly. "To whom the Aquilin Federation fears the Korthok. The Vorthan Republic signed a treaty with them last year. The Corellian Empire only cares about profit." "There are other races out there," Tillin said quietly. "Unknown species beyond the rim. We could broadcast on all frequencies. Someone might answer and tell them what? That we are dying? That we need warriors when we have none? That we need weapons when we build only beauty?" Thizian turned from the window. More of his people were falling in the streets. What civilization would risk the Korthak's anger to save a race of pacifists? Melian moved to the central console. Her fingers danced over the crystal controls. "According to our deep space surveys, there is one system that might help. Sulthri. The inhabitants call their world Earth. Never heard of them. Few have. They are new to space travel. But our scouts classified their world as a Class 12 death world. Extreme gravity, violent weather, dangerous predators, constant natural disasters. The fact that intelligent life evolved there at all is considered impossible by most xenobiologists." These frowned a death world. "What kind of beings could survive such a place?" "The reports say they call themselves humans. Their planet produces more violence in 1 year than most worlds see in a century. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, asteroid impacts. Their evolution was shaped by constant struggle. They sound like monsters, or survivors." Melian brought up the data files. "Look at their biology. Dense bones to handle their crushing gravity. Redundant organs in case of damage. Pain tolerance 50 times higher than ours. Immune systems that fight off diseases that would kill us in minutes." Thizian studied the alien anatomy reports. These humans were built like living weapons. Their bodies were designed for violence and survival in ways the peaceful Zilani could barely understand. "They are warriors," he whispered. "Yes, but will warriors help strangers?" Through the window, another district went dark as the purple death consumed it. Soon there would be nothing left of Zilani civilization except empty crystal towers and the memory of a race that chose beauty over brutality. "Send the message," Thizian decided. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Tell them we are dying. Tell them we need help from warriors who know how to fight monsters." Tylen's hands moved over his controls. "What should we call them in the message?" Thizian looked out at his dying world. "Tell them the truth. They come from a death world. They are Deathworlders. and we pray that makes them strong enough to stop the Korthok." The message went out across the void, a desperate cry for help from a dying race to beings they had never met. The signal traveled through hyperspace, reaching the edge of known space and beyond, far away, in a small system orbiting a yellow star. The message was received by a species that had spent their entire history learning how to fight, how to survive, and how to protect those who could not protect themselves. The humans heard the call, and they began to move. On Velthora, Elder Thysian waited by his window as the Purple Death crept closer to the government district. He did not know if the Deathworlders would come. He did not know if they would care about strangers dying on a distant world, but he had seen their world. He had read their history. If any beings in the galaxy could stop the Korthok, it would be the survivors of Earth. All he could do now was hope that warriors would answer when the innocent called for help. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zalani territory like angry thunder. 50 warships materialized in perfect formation, their dark hulls scarred from Earth's violent skies. Admiral Lee Jun stood on the bridge of the flagship, Iron Will, watching his tactical display light up with contacts. "Sir, we have thousands of refugee ships ahead," reported Lieutenant Kim Hanna. "They're fleeing something big." Lee studied the screen. The alien vessels looked like floating crystals, beautiful and delicate. Many showed blast damage. Some leaked atmosphere in glittering trails. "Any hostile contacts?" "Negative, sir. But I'm reading massive energy signatures from the inner system. Something is burning those worlds down to bedrock." Captain Osuna stepped forward from the communications station. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from one of the refugee ships. They want to meet. Put it through." The main screen flickered to show the strangest being Lee had ever seen. The alien was tall and thin, with pale transparent skin and large, silver eyes. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Elder Myloth of the vessel Harmony's Echo. Are you the ones we called, the warriors from the Death World?" Lee straightened his uniform. "I am Admiral Lee Jun of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. What is your situation?" The alien's eyes widened when it saw him clearly. "Impossible. Your bone density readings. How do you move with such mass? Your internal pressure should crush your organs." "We manage," Lee said simply. "Tell me about your enemy, the Korthok hegemony." "They have destroyed 40 of our worlds in 5 years. They use biological weapons that kill everything, then harvest the remains." The alien's skin flickered with patterns of fear. "We are pacifists. We have no weapons, no armies. We build only beauty and knowledge." Lee exchanged glances with his officers. A race with no military facing an enemy that specialized in biological warfare. "We need to see your tactical data, and we want to meet face to face. You would board our ship, but the environmental differences... We adapt. Send us your atmospheric requirements." An hour later, Captain Osuna led a diplomatic team through the airlock of the Zalani vessel. She wore only light environmental gear. The Zalani delegation gasped when she removed her helmet in their presence. "Your species... You breathe our air without filters." Elder Myloth stared at her in wonder. "Our lungs can handle most oxygen-nitrogen mixtures," Suna explained. "Earth's atmosphere changes constantly. We evolved to adapt, and your size." The elder circled around her like she was a dangerous predator. "You are half my height, but twice my mass. Your muscle density is incredible." "We come from a heavy world," Suna said patiently. "Our gravity is probably 3 times yours." The Zalani medical officer, a being called Healer Violin, approached with scanning equipment. "May I?" "This is fascinating from a biological perspective." Suna nodded. The scanner hummed over her body. "Redundant organs," Violin whispered in amazement. 2 hearts, backup kidneys, reinforced skeletal structure. Your pain tolerance readings are off our charts. And your immune system? The healer's skin went bright with excitement. It's like a war machine. You could survive plagues that would wipe out entire star systems. Earth taught us to be tough, Suna said with a small smile. Now show us what we're fighting. The briefing room filled with holographic displays showing Korthok battle tactics. Intelligence Officer Yoon Daeho studied the data with growing interest. They used the same strategy every time, he noted. Deploy bioweapons from orbit, broadcast fear images to break morale, then move in to collect resources when everyone is dead or surrendered. The fear broadcasts are particularly effective, Myloth explained sadly. They show images of torture, darkness, death. Most species cannot function when exposed to such horror. Major Kong Sunho looked confused. That's it. Pictures of violence. You do not understand. For peaceful races like ours, such images cause complete psychological breakdown. We cannot process such brutality. Kong exchanged looks with his Marines. On Earth, humans watched fictional violence for entertainment. War documentaries were educational programs. History classes taught about every brutal conflict their species had survived. Sir, Yoon reported to Admiral Lee over the comm system. The Korthok have never fought anyone who could resist their bioweapons. Their entire military doctrine assumes immediate surrender after the first plague deployment. Lee studied the tactical data from his flagship. What about their ships? Lightly armored, built for intimidation rather than actual combat. They've never needed heavy weapons because their enemies always died from disease before fighting back. And their ground forces. Shock troops designed for occupation, not warfare. They're used to dealing with weakened, terrified populations. Never had to face healthy, angry soldiers. On the Zalani ship, Captain Suna finished reviewing the intelligence reports. The picture was clear. The Korthok were efficient executioners, but they had never fought a real war. They were bullies who had gotten used to easy victories. Elder Myloth, she said, your people called us Deathworlders. What exactly does that mean? The alien's skin flickered nervously. Worlds where life should not exist. Planets so hostile that evolution becomes impossible. Most scientists believe class-world Deathworlds cannot produce intelligent life. But we did. Yes, you survived what should have killed you. You adapted to what should have destroyed you. You became strong where others would become extinct. Looked at her with something like awe. You are what happens when a death world creates warriors instead of corpses. Suna smiled grimly. Then it's time the Korthok learned what real predators look like. Dr. Choi Yoonji stared at the Korthok bioweapon sample through her microscope and started laughing. The sound echoed through the medical bay of the human flagship, causing several Zalani scientists to jump in alarm. Dr. asked researcher Velia. Her crystalline voice filled with worry. Is something wrong? Yoonji wiped tears from her eyes. I'm sorry. It's just, ... This plague that's killing your people. My immune system would treat it like a minor cold. She pulled up the analysis on the main screen. The Korthok bioweapon was certainly deadly, but it worked by overwhelming the victim's natural defenses. It attacked slowly, giving the immune system time to panic and shut down. Human immune systems don't panic, Yoonji explained. They get angry. Really, really angry. Velian studied the data with growing amazement. Your white blood cell count increases by 3,000% when infected. That should kill you. It kills the infection instead. Earth is covered with diseases, parasites, toxins, and radiation. Our bodies learn to fight everything at once. Yoonji brought up a comparison chart. A Korthok plague spore enters a Zalani bloodstream and finds a peaceful, orderly immune response. It enters human blood and gets torn apart by cellular warriors that have been fighting wars for millions of years. You're saying their bioweapons won't work on humans? They might give us a headache, maybe a fever, but kill us. Yoonji shook her head. Not a chance. Meanwhile, in the fleet's tactical center, Admiral Lee Jun studied Korthok ship designs with his senior staff. The enemy vessels were sleek and intimidating, covered in spikes and painted in threatening colors. "They're trying to scare people," noted Major Kang Sun-ho. "All show, no substance." "Look at the armor plating," added Commander Park Min-ho. "It's thin, designed to look scary, not to stop real weapons." "And the weapons themselves?" asked Lee. Lieutenant Colonel Bei Mira pulled up the technical analysis. "Energy beams calibrated for maximum pain, not maximum damage. They want their victims to suffer before dying. Classic torture weapons." Lee frowned. "What about their void shields?" "Weak. They're used to fighting races that surrender after the first shot. They've never needed strong defenses." On the training deck, human Marines practiced boarding actions, while Zilani observers watched in horrified fascination. Sergeant Han Kyung led his squad through a mock Korthok ship layout, moving with deadly precision. "Notice how they seal their corridors," Kyung pointed out to his men. "They expect their enemies to be afraid of tight spaces. But we trained in Earth's cave systems. We're comfortable in the dark." The Marines moved through the mock ship like shadows. Their heavy combat gear would have crushed most aliens, but human bones and muscles handled the weight easily. They practiced fighting in zero gravity, toxic atmospheres, and extreme temperatures. Sergeant asked one of his corporals, "What if their fear broadcasts actually work?" Kyung grinned. "Then we'll be fighting while scared. Wouldn't be the first time." Elder Myloth watched the training session with growing unease. "Your warriors, they seem to enjoy preparing for violence." "Not enjoy," corrected Captain O. Suna. "But we're not afraid of it either. Earth taught us that violence is just another problem to solve. But how can you be so calm about killing?" Suna considered the question carefully. "We don't want to kill. We want to protect. Sometimes protecting innocent people means stopping those who hurt them. It's not about violence. It's about justice." In the fleet's engineering section, Chief Warrant Officer Nam Ji-hoon worked with human technicians to analyze Korthok ship systems. What they found surprised them. "Their life support is ridiculously complex," Ji-hoon reported to Admiral Lee. "They need perfect temperature, perfect air mixture, perfect pressure. Change any of those by a few degrees, and they start dying. And human requirements. We can breathe their air, handle their temperature ranges, and function in their gravity. But they can't survive in our environment at all." Lee smiled grimly. This was valuable intelligence. The Korthok had evolved on gentle worlds, with stable climates and easy living. They had never learned to adapt. What about their computer systems? Centralized control. Everything runs through main command centers. Take out the command center, and the whole ship shuts down. Weaknesses. They've never fought anyone who could hack their systems or think creatively. Their security is designed to stop panicked, dying enemies, not trained soldiers. Back in the medical bay, Dr. Yoonji finished her report on Korthok biological warfare capabilities. The conclusion was simple. They would be completely ineffective against humans. "There's something else," she told Admiral Lee over the comm system. "Their fear broadcasts? I analyzed the psychological warfare data, and they use images of darkness, violence, and death to break enemy morale. But sir, these are things humans see in entertainment programs, horror movies, war documentaries, action films. We've been exposing ourselves to simulated terror for centuries." Lee chuckled. "So their worst nightmares are our weekend entertainment." "Basically, yes. A Korthak fear broadcast would probably remind most humans of their favorite scary movie." As the human fleet prepared for battle, a clear picture emerged. The Korthok were efficient executioners when facing helpless prey, but they had never encountered predators before. They relied on bioweapons that wouldn't work, fear tactics that would fail, and ship designs that prioritized intimidation over function. They were about to learn the difference between hunting and fighting. Admiral Lee stood on his bridge, watching the tactical displays. His ships were smaller than the Korthok vessels, but built tough. His weapons were designed to destroy, not torture. His crews had trained their entire lives for real combat, not easy victories. All ships, this is Admiral Lee, he broadcast to the fleet. The enemy thinks they're hunting prey. Time to show them they found predators instead. The human fleet struck like lightning across 4 star systems at once. Admiral Lee Jun had split his forces into hunting packs, each targeting a different Korthok occupation force. The enemy had never faced coordinated attacks before. They were used to slow, methodical conquests against helpless victims. War leader Threx commanded the Korthok flagship Solrender in the Thyros system, watching his sensors with growing confusion. 50 human ships had appeared from hyperspace in perfect attack formation, moving faster and more precisely than any enemy he had ever faced. Deploy the fear broadcasts, he ordered his crew. Show them images of death and torture. Break their minds before they reach weapon range. The Korthok transmission filled human communication channels with horrific scenes of violence, darkness, and pain. On the bridge of the Iron Will, Lieutenant Kim Hanna glanced at her screen and shrugged. "Sir, the enemy is broadcasting some kind of horror movie at us," she reported to Admiral Lee. "Any effect on crew morale?" Petty Officer Yoon says it reminds him of that zombie film we watched last week. He rates it 6 out of 10 for special effects. Lee smiled grimly. "Send a response. Tell them we've seen worse on our entertainment networks." The human fleet closed distance rapidly. Korthok energy weapons, designed for maximum pain rather than destruction, struck human ship holes and barely scratched the armor. These vessels were built to survive Earth's violent storms, crushing ocean depths, and the vacuum of space. Torture, beams meant to cause suffering just bounced off like raindrops. "Impossible," Threx whispered, as his weapons failed to stop the advancing humans. "Our pain rays should cripple them." His tactical officer, a tall Korthok named Vex, checked the readings frantically. "Sir, their ships are not responding to neural disruptors. Their hulls are too thick, and their crews, the pain signals aren't affecting them." "What do you mean?" "I mean they're not screaming, sir. They're not begging for mercy. They're not even slowing down." The first human boarding pods slammed into the Solrender like meteors. Sergeant Han Kyung led his Marines through the breach, their heavy combat armor making them look like walking tanks. The Korthok warriors who rushed to meet them stopped. In shock, these humans were half their height but twice as dense. They moved in the ship's reduced gravity, like they were floating. Their weapons were simple kinetic rifles that fired metal slugs, but each shot punched through Korthok armor like paper. "They're so small," gasped a Korthok soldier, before Corporal Lee Jinwoo put him down with a single shot. "Size doesn't matter when you're built like a rock," Jinwoo muttered. Advancing down the corridor, the Korthok tried their biological weapons next. Poison gas flooded the ship's corridors, a toxic mix that should have killed any carbon-based life form within seconds. The human Marines kept fighting without even slowing down. "Sir, the humans are not affected by our combat toxins," Vex reported in panic. Threx watched his tactical display as human boarding parties carved through his ship like a knife through soft metal. "How is that possible? Their biology is insane, sir. They can process toxins that would kill us. They can fight in zero atmosphere. They can survive in temperatures that would freeze our blood solid." On the ship's lower decks, Major Kong Sunho led another assault team through the Korthok engineering section. The enemy soldiers tried to use their superior reach and numbers to overwhelm the humans, but it didn't work. Human reflexes, sharpened by millions of years of dodging Earth's predators, were too fast. A Korthok warrior swung his energy blade at Private Kim Do-yan. The human ducked, stepped inside the alien's guard, and drove his combat knife up through the enemy's chest armor. The Korthok fell, gasping in shock. They don't fight like prey, he wheezed to his dying companion. They fight like ... like predators. That's because we are predators, Doyon said grimly, moving to secure the engineering console. Across the ship, Korthok resistance crumbled as they faced an enemy unlike anything in their experience. These humans felt pain but ignored it. They faced death but didn't fear it. They fought with a calm, professional brutality that was more terrifying than any rage. In the ship's command center, War Leader Threx found himself surrounded by human soldiers. Captain Osuna stepped through the smoke, her rifle trained on his chest. "Surrender," she said simply. You cannot defeat us," Threx stammered. "We are the conquerors of 40 worlds. We are death itself." "No," Suna replied calmly. "You're bullies who got used to easy fights. We're survivors from a world that tried to kill us every day for 4 billion years. There's a difference." Similar scenes played out across all 4 target systems. The Korthok masters of psychological warfare and biological weapons found themselves helpless against an enemy that simply didn't care about their threats. Human ships, built tough enough to survive Earth's violent environment, shrugged off weapons designed to torture rather than destroy. Within 6 hours, the Korthok forces were in full retreat. Their commanders, used to instant victories through fear and plague, had no idea how to fight a real war against determined opponents. "All Korthok vessels, this is Admiral Lee of the Terran Defense Fleet," came the broadcast across all channels. "You have attacked innocent civilizations and committed genocide. Surrender now or be destroyed." War Leader Threx, limping from his wounds, transmitted the retreat order to all remaining Korthok ships. For the first time in their species' history, they were running from a fight. "Send word to High Command," he ordered weakly. "Tell them we have encountered the Deathworld warriors. Tell them they are everything the legends said, and worse." The human fleet regrouped, victorious but not celebrating. They had stopped the immediate threat. But Admiral Lee knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when Deathworlders went to war. 6 months after the Great Battle, Elder Thysian stood in the rebuilt crystal chambers of Velthora, watching Admiral Lee Jun sign the Terran-Zalani Defense Treaty. The human's pen looked tiny in his thick fingers, but he wrote with careful precision. "I still do not understand your species," Thysian admitted as the ceremony concluded. "You could have demanded anything from us. Tribute, territory, resources. You saved our entire civilization. Instead, you ask only for friendship." Lee smiled, his scarred face softening. "On Earth, we have a saying. The strong protect the weak. It's not about reward. It's about doing what's right." The treaty signing was broadcast across the galaxy, and the reaction was immediate. In the golden halls of the Aquilon Trade Federation, Director Zorvac watched the transmission with growing concern. "These humans," he said to his advisors. "How powerful are they exactly?" "Unknown, sir, but they destroyed a Korthok fleet in hours." The Korthok had never lost a battle before, and their demands from the Zalani. "None, sir. They're offering free protection to any peaceful race that requests it." Zorvac's feathers ruffled nervously. "Free protection? What's their real plan?" "We're not sure they have one, beyond helping people, sir. On the military world of Corvin Prime, General Vex of the Vorthan Republic studied tactical reports from the Korthak survivors. The few enemy ships that escaped had carried terrifying stories. They say human soldiers can fight in vacuum, reported Intelligence Officer Cavell, that their weapons fire solid metal instead of energy, that they laugh at psychological warfare. Impossible, Vex growled. Sir, we have video footage. Human Marines boarding Korthok ships without environmental suits. Human vessels taking direct hits from pain rays and not even slowing down. Vex watched the battle recordings in silence. These humans moved differently from any species he had seen. They were compact, dense, and fast. Their ships looked crude, but proved nearly indestructible. What kind of world creates warriors like this? He wondered aloud. According to our xenobiology reports, their home planet is classified as impossible for intelligent life. Class 12 death world with extreme gravity, violent weather, dangerous predators, and constant natural disasters. And they not only survived, but thrived. Yes, sir. They evolved in an environment that should have killed them. It made them strong instead. In the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Rigel 7, Technician Mervan detected another human fleet movement. This was the 15th in 2 months. The humans were responding to distress calls across the galaxy with frightening efficiency. "Where are they going now?" asked his supervisor. "The Cetan system, pirate raids against civilian transports, and before that, medical aid to the plague outbreak in the Deneb sector. Search and rescue in the Altair system after that asteroid impact. Peacekeeping mission in the disputed territories near Vega." The supervisor studied the pattern. They're not expanding territory. They're not demanding resources. They're just ... helping people. It's strange, sir. Most species that gain military power use it for conquest. These humans use it for protection. Word spread quickly through the galactic underground. In the slave markets of Kepler Station, traders whispered about the human fleet that had liberated 3 forced labor camps without demanding ransom. In the pirate havens, near Wolf 359, raiders spoke fearfully of the Deathworld ships that seemed to appear wherever innocents were in danger. Captain Osuna commanded one of these response fleets, patrolling the Outer Rim territories. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Park Su-Yang, reported another distress call. Civilian freighter under attack by raiders in the Tau Ceti system, sir. Standard piracy operation. How many hostiles? 12 ships. They've disabled the freighter and are demanding cargo. Suna nodded to her navigator. Set course for Tau Ceti. Maximum speed. Sir, shouldn't we request backup? 12 against 3? Suna smiled grimly. They're pirates, not soldiers. They'll run when they realize they're fighting Deathworlders. She was right. The human task force dropped out of hyperspace, and the raiders immediately tried to flee. But human ships, built to survive Earth's harsh environment, were faster and tougher than anything the pirates had. Within an hour, all 12 raider vessels were either captured or destroyed. The freighter captain, a reptilian being named Sax, thanked the humans with tears in his large eyes. "Why?" he asked Suna, as his cargo was secured. "Why help strangers? What do you gain?" "Sleep," Suna replied. "We sleep better knowing innocent people are safe." As reports of human intervention spread across the galaxy, a pattern emerged. These Deathworlders didn't conquer. They protected. They didn't demand tribute. They offered aid. They didn't rule through fear. They earned respect through service. The mighty Corellian Empire, rulers of 100 systems, sent diplomatic envoys to Earth. The message was simple. We wish to discuss mutual cooperation and non-aggression treaties. Even the surviving Korthok, scattered to the galaxy's far edges, carried warnings to any who would listen. Beware the third planet of the Soul system. The Deathworlders have awakened. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. Cross them at your peril. Commander Park Minho, now captain of his own vessel, stood on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen. Lieutenant Kim Hanna approached with daily reports. "Sir, we have 23 new distress calls. 5 slave rebellions requesting support, 3 colonies under attack, 2 medical emergencies, and what appears to be a first contact situation gone wrong." Minho studied the list thoughtfully. Each call represented people in danger, innocents who needed help. The galaxy was vast and full of predators, but now it also had guardians. "Set course for the medical emergency first," he ordered. "Then we'll handle the rest." As the human fleet departed Earth orbit once again, heading toward another crisis. The galaxy watched and learned. The Deathworlders had found their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as protectors. And that made all the difference.